Alright guys, HyDra here, and I hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. One of the big dramas of the past weekend in Madrid was the Vegas Falcons situation. Yes, they came top 12 in the tournament, and one of the big discussions was about the fact that nobody seems to want to scrim them. Big reaction to this over the last couple of days. Scump even says it's pretty disrespectful of the pro players not to practice against another pro team, but the pros will say they're not playing on a pro team level. What are the Falcons and the other teams going to do about this? Because if this continues with the Falcons not able to get quality practice, I'm sure their ownership may be having words. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I greatly appreciate it. Starting here just with a couple of pictures from the last weekend in Madrid. There were some great shots here actually. Of course, like OpTic went out of the tournament early and we got a bit more to say on that later on today. Some crowd shots as well. I think this was over on the, I guess the right hand side of the venue if you're looking at the main stage where most of the Spanish fans were. Right at the top of the back here was like the VIP lounge type thing going on. So yeah, it was honestly fire what Toronto had set up this weekend, and some other great shots of the crowd as well. This of course down on the floor, and then Drazah on potentially the winning moment, probably the winning moment, I don't know, one of the winning moments anyway in one of their series during the course of the weekend. There's also a couple of things being said on the state of the game, and I think this is a valid discussion to have as well. Do we need changes to the map pool? After what we saw this weekend, I'm a big fan of Hacienda, and I think doing the watch party this weekend, last year, doing the watch party was good fun in person for sure, but when you're sitting there watching 5 matches a day, often not of the greatest quality, especially on Friday between not the greatest teams, it can get very tiring very quickly. I found BO6 this weekend very watchable. Like, I actually enjoyed, like, basically every second I watched the game, which was almost a surprise to me. So, because, you know, during regular weekends, I'm not necessarily always sitting there watching it all the time, 100% locked in every single moment, every single map of every single series. This weekend I pretty much was, and I had a great time watching it, which was good to see. The issue is that maybe the game isn't as good as it could be, and also the maps aren't perfect. I did get fed up of watching Protocol Control, I'm not gonna lie. Thankfully on the Sunday, we got a fair few Haciendas, and Hacienda is fantastic. Maybe it's not quite as good as it was in BO4 with some of the changes they made, whatever. It's still a great map to watch, and hopefully we get more of that in due course as well. Even as Sender says, can we talk about how good Hassi is? I love that map. I'd love to see some of the other BO4 maps back as well. Of course, the movement is slightly different to what it was in the original BO4. Like, if you're trying to climb up into the top windows and stuff, you have to, like, basically climb up a ladder rather than just mounting it as you used to be able to. But the BO4 maps are so good in many ways for this game, because I wouldn't say this game is like a jetpack hybrid, but BO4 kind of felt like a pseudo jetpack game because it was so fast. You had the grapple hook as well, which you know, would allow you to fly across the map and stuff. So and that game worked perfectly, and this game in many respects of the movement is not that dissimilar at all. So I do think that it's something to think about there, that if they did bring back those other BO4 maps, it would be great. But of course, for now, we don't have them, and there is understandable discussion on bringing back Rewind. Rewind, a map that was in the map pool in both Hardpoint and Search and Destroy in Stage 1, or, well, this was Stage 1, but back in December, right? The first couple of weeks of December of the matches this season. Hassi was coming in, they got rid of Rewind for both modes. Was that actually the correct decision? There's an argument that no, the pros probably wouldn't have voted for Rewind to go. I mean, there's some debate on that, I guess, but there's basically the CDL decided that Rewind would go because it was the most vetoed map. Now, there's some debate on this. Looney says without question it should come back. I mean, even EasyMac has some stats on it to say that 70% of rounds have an A plant, 80% of rounds have a plant. I actually didn't mind watching Vault Search and Destroy until we got to the grand finals. I felt like between like lesser teams, it's kind of like a bang-out search map that isn't, you know, it can be quite entertaining. But with the top teams playing it, when it's like, oh, well, we'll go A, and then the other team's like, well, I guess we'll go A, and then, like, from a defensive perspective, there's not really that many interesting things you can try to stop that kind of strategy. So it is a problem, and I would probably agree that bringing back Rewind Search for Vault Search, I think I would be in favour of. Getting rid of any of the hardpoints is a question. Rewind hardpoint was okay, and I know that Los Angeles, well, I'd imagine anyway, Los Angeles Thieves would be happy about this because they liked this map. They were in favour of this map staying in the pool. Scrappy was not a happy man when it was removed. So maybe a return there is an option. And Prosper says, Vault Search to Rewind Search, Skyline Hardpoint to Rewind Hardpoint. So look, Skyline Hardpoint isn't great. It's probably the worst of the ones that we play, but it is also a bang-out map. So we'll see what the pros decide. They've got a couple of weeks here to figure what they're going to do. They've got some roster changes to make potentially, and there's an argument they should go to the league and say, all right, I know that you guys have moved this and that. We want to do it this way around instead. The league might say, what are you talking about? We make the decisions here. And, they made the decision last time. Maybe that's what's exactly going to be happening again. These were Simp's numbers on, I guess, the season so far. And, well, another trophy added to the trophy cabinet here in the collection. Just before we get on to the Falcon stuff and their scrims, there was also this emerging last night where apparently Fellow's challenger team is so good that they're basically getting blacklisted from scrims because like everyone just destroys them. So this is almost like the OpTic blacklist from way back in the day, but a different story really, because OpTic back then, Aches and Methods and these other guys involved at the time, and there was some drama obviously even to the present day on that situation, and OpTic blacklisted because they're the most popular team and stuff like this anyway. In Fellow's case, with their Challengers team, it looks like they're so strong that some of the other Challenger teams are like, well, these guys have a serious lead. We need to not scrim them so that we can catch up. Which, again, I mean, look, it's one of these things that's borderline collusion, but is the league going to do anything about it? And the reality is, what can you actually do? Because if you're the league, you're not going to step in, even probably in the CDL, you're not going to step in, let alone in challenges. So, I thought that was kind of remarkable, actually. And shout out Omit, by the way, as an organisation supporting the COD team. Thought it was really cool to see Rafi had brought on board here, the Around the CDL guys, and of course Jake Maverick on board as content creators for the org, and they'll be getting out there to the event. So thought that was actually really great to see. But there's plenty else to get through as well here, because Drazah's got back home. We know that he's now won 6 events over just the last couple of years, and as I said yesterday, he talks a lot of trash and he roasts his competition, but he does back it up with the results. He did put this out though, obviously 3-peat by Lil Wayne, and the question I guess is this really a 3-peat? They won EWC. Now EWC obviously counts as a real event. It was a LAN tournament for $1 million+. That one counts. But the other one, because of course before that was Champs, they lost, they came top 6. So I guess he's counting the minor. Now, the minor is an interesting one. We discussed it at the time because the minor tournament that happened at the start of January was an online tournament, single elimination, but every team was there. So, if you're going to count the home series in MW19, you may have to count this. But the argument would then also be, well, at least the home series in MW19, which were 8-team, sometimes single elim, sometimes double elim, depending on where you were in the bracket. The final Sunday, I think, was just single elim gameplay. The thing is, that season, though, there was nothing else. That was the pinnacle of it. Whereas that minor tournament, this most recent stage, was quite clearly, the minor to the major. So, the minor and the major clearly don't count to the same extent in that case. So that's why there's some debate in it anyway. But Drazah seems to be counting it. And, to be fair, they won all their matches at the minor. They won all their matches since then. They've now won all their matches at the major. So, they are on a serious streak that needs to be shut down by some other team at some point soon. But let's talk about the situation with OpTic, right? And Scump's feelings around the Vegas Falcons scrum situation. A couple of interesting clips emerging this weekend. This was one of them here from Ben J. Razim. He's talking about, the Falcons basically getting screwed. I find this clip pretty funny here because obviously I've got this nice jacket on and I'm absolutely slamming this chicken McNugget that Trey got me, but which was pretty tasty to be fair. But Ben was talking about the Falcons not getting any practice, and there's been a lot of reaction to this over the last couple of days. The first day of the tournament, I think on the Thursday, I walked in and the warm-up scrims were happening. It was FaZe were scrimming against the Falcons. I think I mentioned it to Ben J, and he said, okay, let's give a little bit more context to this situation behind the scenes right now, because the Falcons are not great, and nobody's pretending that they are, but they are a Pro League team, and at the start of the game's cycle, there was no issue with any team scrimming any other team. But as time goes on, there are certain teams that people like to scrim against and certain teams that they don't. OpTic, for whatever reason, don't like to scrim Carolina. They don't think it's good practice. Obviously, that might be debated given what we've seen over the last few weeks here, especially in Madrid. But nonetheless, that is a general feeling. The issue is if you're a pro team, you could either scrim Fellows team, maybe in challenges, or any other pro team. And the feeling is that scrimming Falcons, especially because they're making so many roster changes, I think that's the other point. Had they stuck with their roster the whole time, I think it would be a different story. Have they done the wrong thing by changing? No, but still, it's understandable why the teams are like, well, you guys are scrimming with a new team again today. It's just not good practice. We're just going to run you guys over, basically, is the feeling.
Yeah, this is what I was talking about. Teams are refusing to scrim Vegas.
That's tough.
Yeah.
Wait, over...
They'd rather just not scrim than play Vegas.
That's pretty
That's not right.
But they can't win a hard point.
That's terrible.
I get that, but
that means teams think that they're
warm
worse.
up still. That's
like
just
the
being
most,
a cock.
Disrespectful.
Yeah, that's just being
to
a
a group
cock.
of nice kids that just want to win. You
That's
know
the
what I'm
most
saying?
disrespect you can get.
That's just being
That's
a
what makes
cock.
me feel bad. It's one thing if they're a bunch of assholes. Those kids seem like the nice kids.
Beating them, you still want to warm up, just scrim the kids. Like,
so is Scump correct that it's disrespectful from some of the players, right? Have the players, they're getting too entitled, too big for their boots, whatever. This isn't exactly the first time this might have happened. It's happened in other regions in the past as well with certain teams. And the pros will tell you, because this is what Trey said on the weekends, just get good, right? Like, that's the pro's perspective, and I totally get that perspective. Because if you're a pro player, you're putting in your hours. We always talk about quality over quantity in practice for competitive COD, and really anything this is true. But I think there's certain teams that just grind a lot and they play a lot of COD, and other teams maybe play less COD and maybe do more VOD review and some other things, but when they do practice, they really lock in. And that's the issue, right? Because if you're a team and you're playing Falcons, already going into that scrim set, you're thinking, well, this is not going to be exactly a waste of our time, but it's difficult, I guess, to lock in to some degree. No, it's not like they can't win maps. They can, but they played, 22 respawns this stage, and they won one of them. So, and that's what usually scrim. In search and destroy scrims, I think is a bit of a different story, because they're actually pretty solid in search. But unfortunately, in respawn, it has been an absolute disaster, and we can see by the numbers here. This is the issue, right? Because, Scump might say, and I might say, and many others might say, well, look, it does seem a bit unfair that the teams won't scrim these guys, but equally you look at these Lion Man cards and you say, well, I do get it. A couple of these guys have been excluded, right? Wixel and King, because they've not played 4 series. So we decided, let's just say 4 series is the cutoff point here. And yeah, it is remarkable. I mean, King of Body's card is generational. It's impressive, I think, that he has the league lowest numbers. So 50 rating is like the lowest you can possibly get if you're literally the worst in that particular stat in the entire league. And of the 9 stats that we track here for these cards, 6 of them he is the worst in the league. 2 of them he isn't. Hill Timber 10, he's 60 rated, and actually his first blood rate was 6 in 7, which isn't bad. But yeah, King of Body does end with a 52 overall. So the question, I guess, is really what next, right? Because you can debate it no matter which way you'd like, whether you think it's disrespectful or unfair or whatever, but this is likely to continue because the team is not getting any better. Kicks doesn't seem like he's coming back. I hope that he does, but let's say he doesn't, and the team remains Doom, Exnid, Roxas, and King. That's, they've got some talent there, but it's probably not enough to really get over the line in any of these series right now, or to prove to the other pro teams they can get better. Now, look, sure, they need to scrim challenger teams, and they will. The problem is that there are occasions where the patch update changes the challengers and not for the pros, at which point they would be really hung out to dry. Now, like, again, I discussed on the weekend, is this some sort of, like, tacit collusion or something between the other 11 teams not to scrim them? Not necessarily. But even then, if you're the league, and let's say the Falcons owners are like, hey, we're being left out to dry here because we can't get any practice in, none of these pro teams or scrimmers, this is unfair. And they would have a fair point in that situation because they'd just be destined to, not make champs. And look, they're not going to make champs. They're not going to be better than 12th. But you know what I'm saying, right? They are just getting screwed by their, competitors in this kind of implicit way. So intuit your thoughts in the comments below, because, what would the league do? Would the league be able to step in? Would they step in? Like, what exactly would they say? Like, how can you force pro teams to scrim against a certain roster. Like, the CDL isn't going to have control as to what players do in their practice. So it's very difficult. I'm sure the conversations will be had, though, if this continues. And it's very likely to continue, because it's not like Falcons are going to get any better based on what we have seen this past weekend. So very much interested to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.